Tom, there's a handful of things out there that people think they know about firearms, but they're just plain wrong. I'm reminded of the old saying, it's not what you don't know, it's that so much of what you know just isn't so. And the first thing I hear all the time is that, well, just get a shotgun, you don't even have to aim. And I don't even know if I laugh anymore when I hear people say that. It's, you know, a shotgun is 70, 72 caliber, something like that, 3/4 of an inch on a 12 gauge shotgun. And at across a room, you're gonna have a spread of maybe 4 inches. That means if you don't aim, you could miss. You're liable for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's like FUD lore that you hear at Gander Mountain or something like that, or you used to, I should say. That along with, them always trying to push like the little micro 357, wheel gun on women of or small statured people, like, hey, you should have this. This is a good beginner gun.
Yeah, that's going to work for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that, if you've ever fired like an 870 Express, like a pump shotgun with a nice stout double-aught buck 9 pellet, if you're not a reasonably experienced shooter, the flinch you will develop.
Yes,
from
absolutely.
That. Yeah, it's, great option. Shotguns, home defense, all that kind of stuff. I mean, for the contact distances you're likely anticipating, for most people, probably no more to what you said, 20, 30 feet tops. I mean, the vast majority of the time, what a tool is a one-shot wonder, so to speak. Obviously, it comes with costs, and one of them is the bad lore that you outlined of, it's not just pointed in any old direction and everything in like that 30-degree cone just dies. It doesn't work like that at all. You still have to put accurate shots on target.
And that requires training. And I heard Clint Smith once say that pistols poke holes in things and rifles put holes through things, and shotguns remove pieces of things and deposit them on the ground. It still requires training. If you're going to choose a shotgun as a defensive tool, you must train with it. And folks, you must aim that shotgun and you must put your rounds on target. The other big fantasy, fallacy, whatever I hear, is that the bad guys will always run away when they hear a shotgun racking. You've had your fair share of bad guys that you've dealt with. Are they that fearful? They hear a shotgun racking and they're done, they're out, game over?
To be clear, you're talking about me as an ex-prosecutor, criminal defense attorney.
Yes, not just someone you hang around with on Wednesday nights in your bowling league.
Yes. Although it does get pretty feisty Wednesday night bowling. But, we're from Wisconsin. That's a big deal here.
It's a serious thing.
It is. Look, I would say that, so we know from the statistics that if a bad guy attacks someone and the good guy produces a firearm to protect himself, even without firing it, the bad guy will retreat about 92% of the time. Okay, that is not 100% for starters. You're also assuming that, because we've all heard just rack the slide a few times, that's all you need, Sonny, right? Something like that, right? There's a lot of things baked into that. Like, they know what that sound means. They're just on and on and on. No, that is not a 100% guaranteed get out of jail free card. Don't even waste money on ammo. It's not like that.
And there's also some realistic tactical considerations you need to put in your head if you're going to rack your shotgun slide. If there is a round in the chamber and you rack your slide, you have just reduced your ammo capacity by something like 20%. If there's 5 rounds, 4 in the tube, 1 in the chamber, or 6 rounds, 5 in the tube and 1 in the chamber, you've reduced your ammo capacity on an already slow or difficult to reload firearm. If you keep your gun with the chamber empty and then you rack the round into the chamber, you get the benefit of the noise, and then you load your gun and make it ready. But the racking it a couple of times and then they hear the live rounds fall out on the floor. Well, wait a minute, now he has fewer rounds that he can defend himself with. Other things that people think they know about. Machine guns are absolutely illegal. You just can't own one. I hear that all the time. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so there's about 165,000, maybe upwards of 175,000 lawfully owned machine guns in the United States. That number is going down each year with just things being destroyed, lost, because thanks to the Hughes Amendment back in 1986, there are no new machine guns that can enter the civilian transferable market, which is a very long-winded but technically accurate way of saying things that, for instance, I can buy. Someone who is not active duty law enforcement, active duty military, or anything like that. So it's something that an individual, not a police department or sheriff's department, or some active level of government can purchase, right? So that's what we're focused on when we talk about that. There's about 100, let's call it 170,000. And what's notable about that, because everybody always says, oh, it's the gun, it's the gun, it's the gun. We even heard in the vice presidential debate recently. Sometimes it's just the gun, right? 170,000 machine guns out there. If it's just the gun, and we all know how dangerous these semi-automatic rifles like AR-15s can be.
Right.
You'd think there would be quite an impressive body count with machine guns. So we did not script this. How many times? Do you know how many times one of these machine guns have been used to commit a crime?
I do not, but I'm going to say really low. Really low.
Twice. That I'm aware of. Twice they've been used for homicide. Both times by off-duty police officers. So, right. I mean, that's the situation, which just goes back to the whole notion of sometimes it's the gun.
And while we're talking about class 3 weaponry and things of that nature, a lot of people, especially now lately, are talking about suppressors, about silencers, that you put a silencer on your gun and now you're instantly an assassin and the gun is just whisper quiet and nobody's going to hear you shoot anything. Definitely not true. I've shot a lot of suppressed weapons, and you know what? They still make some noise. They make enough noise to get people's attention. They don't make enough noise to really hurt your hearing. I mean, I used a suppressor on a .308 rifle to kill a beautiful impala in Africa, and it was wonderful, but it wasn't silent, and all the other animals knew where I was. So
yeah, far from silent. And of course, people who are into the suppressor, the Title II world, the Class 3 world, know that, I mean, you start off with just a firearms rapport, right? We now put a suppressor on it, shooting the same, same ammo, and we probably took that 10 out of 10 down to maybe that, depending upon your situation and everything, maybe down to like a 3.5 out of 10. Something like that, plus or minus. Some people might say 2.5, some people might say 5, but it's in that ballpark. Okay, now we start throwing subsonics in there plus a suppressor. Now we're down to like 1.5. And you want to take that down to 1, now get like a bolt action or something like that, so you don't even have the action cycling. So subsonic, bolt action, suppressor, that will be as close as you can get to Hollywood quiet.
yeah, and again, folks, do not get your gun lessons from Hollywood. That's not the place where we want to get all of our firearms information. Other things that people think they're absolutely, and again, this comes from Hollywood, the one-shot stop, the lightning bolt. You shoot someone, they instantly fall over dead or completely incapacitated from a gunshot wound. Again, false. It's that it doesn't happen that way. In your experience, what kind of things have you seen, heard about, dealt with?
So there's a handful of ways that you do get the so-called one-shot stop, right? One is hitting the base of the brainstem, right? I mean, taking out a critical, couple inch by couple inch by few inch box towards the middle of your head, right? So that's how you put the lights out right away, and that's not a shot that people really train for or try to make for lots of very good and obvious reasons. You can get some sort of skeletal, muscular skeletal nervous system shutdown. If you hit someone in the spinal cord, something like that. That's an option, and you're far more likely to get that than the first one. But really, the most likely way of getting a one-shot stop is none of the above. It's a psychological stop, right?
Oh, I'm shot.
I'm shot.
Yeah.
I'm down. Right.
Yeah.
That is by far and away when you see one-shot stops, so-called one-shot stops. There's psychological stops. And different people have different ways of categorizing this. I'm sure someone's going to criticize the 3 that I've quickly sketched out kind of on the back of the napkin live as you're lobbing ideas at me. But that's kind of, I think, 3 fair ways of kind of lumping these one-shot stops. Yeah, if you wait long enough, a person can bleed out, they go into shock and so forth as well. But that's not a 2-second thing.
Yeah,
that's
the
more
lightning bolt, boom,
Yes.
they just go right to the ground.
We're talking they're out of the fight. Like, boom, down, like God struck them down. That's how I'm picturing a one-shot stop, and it's generally psychological. So but that's the exception, I would say, by and large.
Yeah, and on that same vein, police academy training and all the other training that I've been going to is keep shooting until the threat stops, because through clothing, you might not even know or see that you are hitting your target. And it might, the shirt might pop a little bit or something like that, but you might not even get that immediate blood stain or anything like that. It's a gut shot might have most of the bleeding inside a person. It's not going to be running out, making the big, huge red stain that you see again in the movies. That kind of stuff. Just again, folks, don't get your information from what you're seeing on the movies. What else have you heard that people are absolutely sure of that we know that we're not? It's just simply not true.
I'm going to say another big one that is big on FUD lore, big on the internet, is the fact that revolvers never jam.
Absolutely. And this is one actually I'm tied to. I was a long time ago in a past life, I was the editor of a book, Gunsmithing Pistols and Revolvers. And all of the ways that a revolver can break, and I'm going through this book thinking, there are a ton of ways that a revolver can stop working. And once it stops, it's not just a slap rack and get back in the fight. It's not just clearing a jam. This gun is out of the fight. You've broken a spring. There's been, on some of these ultra lightweight 357 Magnums, you're unseating bullets and they're tying up the cylinder and things like that. Yeah, you're right. Revolvers do jam, and once they jam, it's a big problem. It's a gunsmith level problem. You're not using that gun in the fight anymore.
All right, so one free piece of advice: if you're pulling the trigger, and maybe it starts cycling, but it doesn't go from round 1 to 2 or from 2 to 3 or something like that, check underneath your ejection star. So unload your firearm, make sure it's safe, point in a safe direction, and just check for a little bit of like unburnt powder or something or other, because it'd be amazing. I forget who said this. Maybe it's many people, but this really seems to nail it for me. I want to hear what you have to say about it. When it comes to comparing revolvers and semi-automatics, revolvers can stand up to the neglect, and semi-automatics can stand up to the abuse.
Yes.
That's what they excel at.
Yep.
You're just going to buy a firearm, throw it in a sock drawer for 20 years, get a revolver. And of course, if you want to go beat it up on the range and put 1,000 rounds through it, I'm not saying that your Ruger security, I'm a big Ruger fan, but I'm not saying that your Ruger or whatever else can't do it. I'm just saying you might be in, if you think it's never going to jam, you might be in for a little bit of a surprise.
Right, and there are levels of maintenance that have to be done to a revolver. Like you said, cleaning out underneath the ejection star and making sure that there's not unburnt powder on the forcing cone right on the front, where the actual cylinder is turning. Revolvers are complicated devices that have some narrow tolerances if you want them to work properly. So this idea that, get a revolver because it never jams, what was the old saying? Six for sure. Six for sure. Nope, if you don't take care of your revolver like any other mechanical device, it's not going to work. And Tom, I'm sure there are countless other things out there. I'd like to hear it in the comments, other things that people know for certain about firearms that may or may not be true. We could do this every month when talking about things that people know for certain, and we're like, no, sorry folks, that's not true.
We started the list with 1 through 5. Let's hear 6 through 50 next.
Yeah.
Let's hear it in the comments section. Let's see what people have to say.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for your insight, Tom. Always great talking to you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Hey, before you go, let me ask you, are you breaking these gun laws without even knowing it? Get a free concealed carry map that reveals the gun laws in your state and the states you might be traveling to. Click the link in the description below to check it out.